Okay, so today we've got an episode from my sausage series. Today we're going to make some chorizo. Chorizo is one of the best known sausages of Spain and in the Spanish areas of the Americas. It can be made fresh, sometimes it's smoked, sometimes it's dried, and today we're just going to make a spicy fresh version. So we're going to start with 1.5 pounds of pork, and as I always do, I make sure that the pork is partially frozen. It makes the grinding process a little easier, keeps the meat cooler. And I also note that the grinder and the plates are also kept put in the freezer. So this whole thing here was put in the freezer for a while. And that's going to keep the plates and the grinder from overheating and possibly starting to cook some of the meat. So for chorizo, I use the medium grind plate. Now the medium grind plate is about 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch, hole size. I mean, that's the size of the holes in the plate. Now, when you do this grinding, of course, you're going to end up with, not everything is going to feed all the way through. Some of it's going to stick in the little, spiral in there. One of the little tricks to get all the rest of the meat out is take a piece of stale bread and put a piece of stale bread in at the end. And what that's going to do is that's going to get in there and that's going to push the last bits of the meat out. And you'll be able to tell because you'll see a little bit of the bread start to come out there. And then you'll know you're pretty much done. All right, so I have all of the meat here. It's ready to go. And so to that, I'm going to add, one thing I'm going to add is 1.5 ounces of cold white wine. So I've got that sitting in here being cold. All right, so I'm going to get that and I'll put that right in. And then I have 2 teaspoons of paprika. Paprika is what gives the chorizo its customary color, that kind of nice red color. I have a teaspoon of salt. I have a teaspoon of minced garlic in here, very finely minced. This is where the heat comes from. It's a teaspoon of cayenne. Now, if you don't want spicy chorizo, you could just decide not to put that in at all or to reduce the amount you put in. A teaspoon in 1.5 pounds is going to give you a nice spicy one. And then I have a 1/2 teaspoon of cumin, and I have a 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano, and finally a 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. And that's really all there is that you have to do. Now you just have to kind of get in there with your hand and you have to mix it all up really good. And in order though, to make sure that this gets blended nicely and all the flavors work through it, it's really not a good idea to go ahead and stuff the sausage the same day that you mix it all up. So what I'm going to do is pack this up and I'm going to stick it in the fridge and it's going to sit overnight. And then tomorrow we'll have a stuffing party. So I'll see you then. All right, so the chorizo sat overnight and all of the flavors are nicely melded in. And now we're gonna stuff them into their casings. Now I did let the chorizo warm up a bit, and what's important about that is because if you try to do this when it's really cold, it's hard to stuff. The other thing you'll notice I'm kind of tossing them down into this stuffer here, and the reason is because I want to try and get out as much of the air as possible. It makes it a little better. So what I did in that case was that I go ahead and I tossed it down in there and then punched it down in a little bit to do that. Now you'll see what I'm using here is a sausage stuffer. You don't have to use one of these. If you're going to be making a lot of sausage, then it's good to have one. But if you're only going to make it occasionally, they have those attachments for the mixers similar to the grinder that I used, and you can use that instead. I'm putting this into pig casings. These are all natural casings. You can get these on the internet if you can't find them anywhere locally. They're not that expensive. They come packed in salt, so you have to sort of soak them in water for at least a half an hour or so to get the salt off of them. And then you can go ahead and do it. Now, these are the medium-sized casings. They're 20 to 25 millimeters. You'll see what I did is I got pumped this through, got the sausage into it. So now I got as much air out as I possibly can. And now I can tie off the end, again, as close to where the sausage is as I can. We got most of the air out. That's good. Now I can just go ahead and stuff. Now the only thing I want to do is I don't want to stuff them too tight. If I put it too tight, then they might explode. So you'll see I'm kind of helping to guide it through as I stuff this. And you know, occasionally you'll get a little air in there, but that's okay. We'll fix that later. So here we go. We'll just get all of this in there. All right, almost done. See how easy that is? One of the advantages of this over the mixer attachment is that you have a little bit more control. And you know, I can stop and start. I can change the speed. All right, so there we have it. I now have them done up like that. All right, push that through. All right, and I'm done. All right, I can tilt this here. And now I want to do is I want to make these into links. And so I just say, well, how big of a link do I want? Let's say about that long. So what I'll do is I'll grab at that location like that, and then I'll do this. And that'll tie off the links. I got a couple here, and then I'm going to do the same thing in the next stretch, like that. Okay, they're about the same size, you know, nothing's perfect here. Then I'll do a couple more, here like so. And then it looks like I got, yeah, I don't know if it's a couple more or one more, but let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now the last thing you do with this is that in order to avoid potential explosions later when you cook them is you prick them. I have this is an actual sausage pricker that I bought, but the thing is you don't want to use a fork, that's too big. So if you don't have something like this, you know, try using like a pin, you know, little pins, but you're just going to do this. And what that's going to do is going to allow it to expand a bit without exploding when you cook them. So that's it. My chorizo are now ready to go. And you can either cook these right away. You can leave them in the fridge for a couple of days. You know, they'll last for a few days unfrozen. But if you want to keep them any longer than that, I suggest you freeze them, vacuum pack them if you can, and then cook them when you're ready. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.